My friend was in an online relationship that ended badly, and it cost him his life. Warning: this will be an extremely lengthy post that discusses mental health, suicide, self-harm, and more. I intend to provide as much detail as possible, including background information, as I believe this story needs to be shared. However, I have altered some details and omitted certain aspects for the sake of privacy, among other reasons. My friend, whom we will refer to as K, was an incredible individual. He was exceptionally kind, empathetic, loving, strangely intelligent on the spectrum, and overall a wonderful person. He was the type to give someone the world if he could, without expecting anything in return. He was very quiet, somewhat reserved, and shy, yet still a fantastic person. I honestly cannot express how remarkable he was in words. Sadly, he came from a very difficult and troubled background. We live in the United Kingdom, and he grew up under dire circumstances, experiencing extreme poverty, scavenging for loose change on the floor to survive type of poverty. He had a profoundly traumatic and abusive upbringing. From a very young age, he suffered severe beatings and emotional as well as physical abuse. He had been stabbed through the hand, burned, thrown downstairs, had his face stomped on, and lost all his teeth as a child, among other horrors. I am speaking of absolute nightmare experiences. He struggled tremendously and despised school due to his mental health challenges, stating that he didn't really have a childhood. Fast forward to when he was 17 or 18. Still living in those difficult circumstances, he decided to join the army as a means of escape. He spent 5 years in the military, becoming much more confident and happy, and finally had some money and a somewhat decent friend circle. However, he was still clearly a very troubled individual behind his joyful facade. Eventually, he left the military, reportedly suffering from extreme insomnia and sleep deprivation, which caused his mental health to deteriorate. After leaving, his entire life fell apart, and he experienced extreme depression. Although he obtained a new job, he was not particularly fond of it. He was clearly not in a good state. I believe loneliness affected him deeply since he had lost all of his army friends and only maintained contact with 2 people after leaving. Eventually, he reconnected with an old school friend, whom we will refer to as J, after K assisted him in escaping an abusive relationship and helped him move his belongings. They began spending a lot of time together, and K appeared to be happier once again. Eventually, J mentioned that he was in an online relationship with a woman we will call G, and offered to set K up with one of her friends. I should note that K was not a foolish person. He was not someone one would assume would engage in an online relationship. Nevertheless, he was 23 years old at the time. He was one of those individuals who had yet to experience love. I am referring to never having been touched, hugged, kissed anything. I believe that due to the abuse he endured as a child, forming relationships simply never occurred to him. This made him exceedingly emotionally vulnerable, and it is honestly heartbreaking to consider that he went through his entire life without experiencing genuine care or love. J and G arranged for him to connect with their friend, whom we will refer to as M. For context, J and K reside in the United Kingdom, while G lives in Denmark and M is Norwegian. From that point onward, everything began to change. I have reviewed months and months of their conversations. He started out very nervous, shy, and hesitant, but she appeared genuinely kind, patient, and loving, which encouraged him to open up. He shared details about his childhood trauma, his insecurities, his passions, everything. They would message and call daily, even sleeping on calls together every night. He was completely in love with her, and it was unmistakably evident. Unfortunately, Kay was still grappling with his mental health challenges. He confided in her about self-harming, including sending pictures when requested. He continued to struggle with insomnia, which was later diagnosed as severe complex post-traumatic stress disorder. M comforted him, supported him, and even purchased and sent medication to him from Norway. On the surface, everything seemed fine. However, approximately 8 months in, it appeared to become overwhelming for him, and during one of his depressed episodes, she ended the relationship. Reading that conversation was honestly gut-wrenching. You could see how deeply it affected him. It appeared to come out of nowhere for him, and it hurt him so intensely that a week later, he attempted to take his own life. Photos on his phone and messages from after the fact indicate that he ended up cutting himself and attempting to overdose on sleeping medication that she had sent him to aid his sleep. Thankfully, he survived the attempt, and both G and J supported him. Eventually, after a few weeks, M returned and they reconciled. Despite still being profoundly wounded by what had transpired, you could see that he tried to maintain a bit more emotional distance. However, at this point, he was likely too emotionally attached to her. He clearly still loved her and had formed a trauma bond with her over the time they spent together. It seemed that M did genuinely care about him, but honestly, I no longer know. A few months after reconciling, Jay discovered that his online partner G had actually been lying throughout their entire relationship about her identity. Apparently, the photographs she used were fabricated, and after informing K of this revelation, K fell into complete panic. He confronted M and presented proof that he had discovered the deceit. M admitted that she had been lying and that it was not her in the pictures. She explained that they had never intended for it to become serious, but had fallen in love and did not know how to tell him the truth. You can interpret that as you will. Nevertheless, Kay forgave her, clearly expressing that he still loved her for who she was, and he did not want to end their relationship over seemingly trivial pictures, insisting that they could remain together as long as she promised to be honest moving forward. They had a brief exchange where she agreed, followed by her sending him a new photo of the real her. It did not take long before Kay purportedly found the image on Pinterest and began begging her to be truthful, leading her to panic. She claimed that it was impossible for him to have found that picture, stating that the relationship could not function because he no longer trusted her. This seemed like severe gaslighting, and she ceased communication shortly thereafter. Following this, he fell into a serious downward spiral. He was clearly not in a good mental state and had just lost his only support network. He attempted to reach out to his friend J but was ignored. G did not respond to him, and after several days he mentioned in a plea for help that he was spiraling and could not pull himself out. He begged for assistance. He tried to reach out, yet none of them helped him. Not a single one of those individuals people who were supposed to be his friends, who claimed to care about him, responded. His final attempt to reach out was once again to M. He wrote a substantial apology letter expressing his love for her, detailing how he felt he was losing his sanity because he could no longer discern reality. This woman, who claimed to love him and who had spoken to him every single day for a year, did not respond. She did not apologize. She did not offer help. She blocked him. She took an incredible, loving, and deeply vulnerable person, someone who was genuinely kind but broken. He had informed her in advance about his mental health struggles and suicidal thoughts. She took this man, poisoned his mind and soul with false promises of a life he would never obtain, deceived him regarding a future and her true identity, gaslit him into insanity, and then abandoned him to die. He pleaded for help from the only individuals he trusted, but they blocked him. He went on to once again cut his wrist and overdose on a combination of painkillers and sleeping tablets. Only this time, there was no one there to assist him or to call an ambulance. Words cannot adequately express how utterly reprehensible what he endured was. He did not deserve what happened to him. No one does. I cannot help but cry when I think about what his life could have been. He had aspirations. He wanted to move to Norway and start anew. He loved helping people and was such a giving individual. What angers me the most is that the people responsible for this probably have no idea of the harm they caused. Or if they do not care. They continue to live their lives as if nothing occurred, likely finding someone else to love and experience joy with. He did not receive that opportunity. The first and only time in his entire life that he felt love, it cost him his life. What frustrates me the most is that I do not even know what to think. Even after all this time, I look through his messages and it appears that M genuinely cared. But how could she? If she cared, why would she treat him in such a way? Why would anyone do this to another person? It is sickening. I do not know if it stems from cowardice or malice, but it makes me nauseous. The thought that they will never comprehend or care about the damage they inflicted on him is painful. He even wrote her a final message, his last goodbye or suicide note, on his phone. He still loved her and never had the chance to send it because they were too cowardly to face the repercussions of their actions. To hell with the internet, and to hell with anyone who perpetrates such cruelty against others. Story 2. Struggling with long distance, my boyfriend's communication has dwindled, leaving me feeling lonely and unappreciated. I adore his potential, but his distance and lack of effort hurt. Am I holding on to a love that isn't really there, or is change possible? Hello, my boyfriend and I have been dating for about 8 months now. We are in a long-distance relationship. I live in California, and he is in Florida. He has visited me twice and plans to come again at the beginning of April. This is my first serious relationship, and the distance makes things incredibly difficult. I have borderline personality disorder, so everything triggers me. I started therapy to seek help, but sometimes I feel like what I ask my boyfriend for is not much at all. All I request is that he communicates with me. When we first began dating, we would be on the phone constantly. I would relax with family while he was on the phone with me. I would be working and he would still be on the phone, or I would be at the store and he would be on the phone as well. He would get upset if my voice sounded friendly when I spoke to coworkers or strangers, and this would lead to arguments. Even though my coworkers and I have at least a 16-year age difference, with a maximum of 27 years, I genuinely have no interest in engaging with these individuals beyond what is necessary for work. Anyway, he used to talk to me all day, which annoyed my family. They even told him that he was being controlling. After they expressed this to him, he stopped calling me for the last 3 months. While I never enjoyed feeling like I was walking on eggshells, the sudden withdrawal from almost all communication with him made me feel incredibly lonely. Now, he works and takes a long time to respond to me, sometimes leaving me waiting for 3 to 4 hours. When he finishes work, he goes home to relax and then does not text me for another 1 to 2 hours. I have his location, but communication through texts or phone calls would be appreciated. We argued a lot about this back in December, and he would become very upset with me. Again, we had arguments about it in February, during which he frequently brought up breaking up, and it really hurt. I love him deeply, but I do not ask him for much. All I truly want is effort and communication, but I need to learn to articulate my feelings better because whenever he feels criticized, he becomes defensive and distances himself from me. When I asked him why he started to become distant, he told me that the more arguments we have, the less he wants to talk to me. He said he holds those 20 minutes of wasted time against me because I am holding him back from doing things he needs to do. That hurts incredibly. I love him dearly, and I do not have any family or friends to talk to. I never go out, I do not play video games, and I do not have any hobbies. I know I deserve better, but I wish he could be better for me. Sometimes I criticize myself excessively because of my BPD. I understand that my illness leads me to overthink and take things personally, but I know deep down that he is not a great boyfriend, and this realization is not just my mind trying to self-sabotage. In the past, when we would call, he and my mother got along. However, I made the mistake of discussing our arguments with her because I needed advice, as I do not have friends. She can also see it in my face when my boyfriend and I argue. It truly ruins my entire day. I would get excited and tell her about the things he promised to do for me, like, "Mom, he said he is going to buy me Uggs for Christmas," or "Mom, he said he wants to buy me AirPods," or "Mom, he said he will buy me a mini fridge," or "Mom, he said he is going to get me a bouquet of roses." These are promises he made, yet he never follows through. One time, my mother and I were arguing, which happens weekly, and he overheard her say, "You are foolish. You bought him 3 pairs of shoes for his birthday and sent him a package through the mail, and what does he do for you?" He hasn't bought anything he promised. He became upset with me for sharing things with her, and also because I am dating him and not my mom, so he questions why it matters. Ever since then, he has disliked being on the phone with me. I think he has lost feelings for me, but I do not understand why he keeps me around. Maybe it is because I beg for him to stay, or perhaps he is using me. We are not even intimate anymore, so I know my feelings for him are not based on that. I just love him so much, and he is all I have. He does not like my mother, so I got an apartment to make him feel more comfortable when he visits. He promised to help me buy a bed frame, but he did not follow through. I know I sound foolish for staying. He tells me that he will live with me to make things easier so that I do not overthink, but a part of me feels unhappy that he will move in with me only after I buy all the furniture and pay for all the rent. I would love to cohabitate with him, but I genuinely do not know if he loves me. He speaks to me sweetly, and everything feels good when we communicate on his terms. However, whenever I try to speak, it seems like he does not want to engage or he zones out. We hardly talk on the phone anymore, which hurts because I crave his presence so much. During the rare moments we do talk, whenever I start speaking, I can tell he is ignoring me or becoming distant because I will pause for a response, and he does not say anything. I endure so much at home with my family, particularly with my narcissistic mother, who is a single parent and takes advantage of my finances. I feel like no one truly loves me for who I am. I am terrified to break up with my boyfriend because I know he is not a terrible partner. He does not go out much, he stays home and tells me he is loyal, so this does not seem to be the root issue. My primary concern is that we lack communication. For the past week, he has not even wished me good night before bed. He sleeps every night while on the phone, yet he has not been calling me despite my expressing how much it affects me, causing me to stay up all night crying. He has shown some understanding and even apologized, yet he never changes. This has been a pattern throughout our relationship. Before we began dating, he did inform me that he struggles with communication issues, attributing it to his attention deficit hyperactivity disorder and attention deficit disorder. He runs a business and stresses about his family in another country, as he sends money to assist them too. While I understand he has his own challenges, he is now in a relationship. I wish someone would prioritize me the way I prioritize everyone else. I am the eldest daughter among 4 children and have been providing my parents with financial assistance and taking on their responsibilities since I got my first job. I have been caught in the middle of their arguments, my father's homelessness, his gambling addiction, my mother's narcissism, and her untreated borderline personality disorder, which is incredibly exhausting. I have experienced depression since I was 6 years old and went to therapy, but ever since I entered into a relationship, I feel like everything has worsened with my mother and her judgment towards my boyfriend and our situation, as well as my boyfriend's disdain for her due to the way she treats me. I have no one to confide in. I feel so lonely and pain-ridden. I realize I should probably leave him, but my love for him is immense and I wish he would change for me. I am infatuated with his potential, and it hurts to wait for it to materialize. I am also afraid of the breakup because I cannot manage my emotions, and I fear I will cry at work, leading me into a deep depression. I have never loved someone as much as I love him, but he genuinely makes me feel like I am a burden and disturb him. He used to put more effort into our relationship. We would play long-distance games together, engage on Roblox, and he even used to send me small Hello Kitty decorations from Amazon. When I bring this up now, he responds by saying he is too drained from work. I know I am foolish for staying, but I suppose I also understand that I have invested too much time and money in him. He earns significantly more than I do, yet I have spent more on him because the love I receive from my parents has always been tied to financial support. He also expects me to buy him marijuana and ship it to him. I tell him I experience anxiety sometimes when I discuss the efforts I make, and he responds by saying I should remind him never to ask me to do anything for him. When I express my fears, he tells me to trust him and not to question him. Recently, I sent a package through the United States Postal Service, which was supposed to arrive the next day, but it has not yet been delivered after a week. He has been calling them every day for updates, even after I asked him to let it go because it gives me anxiety. He then said he simply would not update me anymore. The way he speaks to me, I would never be able to talk to him that way due to my fear of him breaking up with me. I am uncertain about what to do. I feel sad and alone. I wish I were loved in the same way I love. I have anxious attachment and borderline personality disorder. I do not take medications, and therapy hardly helps, to be honest. I do not know what to do with myself. Story 3. After 6 years together, I question my relationship with a great guy. We've lost our spark, he won't plan dates, and I've developed a crush on a friend. Can this be saved, or is it time to move on? Hello everyone, I am seeking some advice. I am a 27-year-old female and my partner is a 28-year-old male. We have been in a relationship for 6 years, since our early 20s, and have lived together for most of that time. We also have 2 dogs. When we initially started dating, it was wonderful. It was the typical honeymoon phase with enjoyable outings, a desire to impress one another, and we had good sexual chemistry, among other things. I want to clarify that I do love him and care for him deeply. Hurting him is the last thing I want to do. He has previously stated that losing me is his greatest fear, and he cannot envision his life without me. To some extent, I also struggle to imagine my life without him. I have spent almost my entire adult life so far with him. My family loves him and wants me to marry him, and his family adores me. He is a kind person, passionate about his hobbies, and he has a good heart. Currently, we go long stretches without having sex. I rarely desire to be intimate, and although I still find him attractive, I no longer feel that we share any sexual passion. When we do engage, it feels very much like we are just going through the motions. We have slightly different preferences in the bedroom. When he brings this up, he states that it makes him feel unattractive, and I dislike that he feels this way. I wish I could make him feel more attractive. Regarding romance, there is very little of it. We never go out on dates. I mention places I would like to visit, activities I would like to do, and gifts I desire, yet he never seems to take the hint, even on birthdays or anniversaries. All the fun activities we do are my suggestions, even something as simple as going for a walk or watching a movie. I would appreciate more romance and spontaneity, and I have previously mentioned this, which I will discuss in more detail later. He also does not contribute much to household chores. All of that responsibility falls on me. We both work full-time, so it is not as if I have more time to devote to these tasks. We have discussed marriage, children, and such topics, and he says, he does not care about getting married, but he will do it if I want to. However, whenever anyone brings it up to him, he has a new excuse each time. Sometimes he even suggests that it is I who does not want to get married, even though we both know that is untrue. I am at a stage where I am ready to start a family, and he does not seem particularly concerned about that either. One significant issue, for which I am completely to blame, is that I developed a crush on a friend. Let us refer to him as K, who is 30 years old. We have chemistry, share numerous interests, goals, and values, and I am very attracted to him. When my partner and I initially got together, we had more in common than we do now. My hobbies and interests have evolved as I have grown older. Kay listens to me more than my partner does, and spending time with him has revealed what I have been missing out on in a way. I felt the spark I experienced when I first started dating my partner. I feel immensely guilty about this. I know I would never cheat or engage in anything similar. That would be a significant betrayal, and I could never hurt someone I care about in that manner. Still, it leads me to question if I am with the right person. This particular doubt began about a year ago when my partner made a significant life decision, dropping out of university, without informing me for months. He only admitted it when I directly asked him why he had not been attending. I understand it is his life, but we went through financial struggles, which I assisted with, and endured unpleasant living situations during his studies, under the promise of it will all be worth it when he graduates. I felt extremely betrayed by this situation, and shortly afterward, I attended an event with Kay that we were both interested in. After having some drinks and engaging in conversation, I realized how much we clicked, and my crush on him started to develop. I decided to have an honest conversation with my partner about my unhappiness in our relationship and addressed some of the issues mentioned above. I did not bring up the lack of sexual passion or the situation with Kay. Instead, I discussed the chores, the absence of romance, and the betrayal of keeping secrets from me, among other matters. This resulted in him breaking down. He expressed that he just wants to be good enough for me, that I am the best thing in his life, and that he cannot live without me. For a couple of weeks, things improved. We went on several dates and began having sex more frequently, but the genuine passion was still absent, and we quickly reverted to our old habits. I apologize for this lengthy message, but I find myself at my wit's end. I know I am young, yet I fear waking up in 10 years and realizing I made the wrong choice. Please assist me. Any and all advice and wisdom are appreciated. I would like to hear from anyone who has experienced a similar situation, even if you were in my partner's shoes. How can I salvage this? Can a situation like this even be resolved? For those who prefer a summary, I am ultimately questioning my relationship with a good person for various reasons, but I hope for it to work out, though I am unsure how to achieve that.